So now what you know is that we have additional arguments such as all and all.x and all.y. So those arguments, they control the way in which records are being matched, right? So say for example, when a value of the by variable only appears in one of the two data frames, right? So by default, all of these arguments are set to false, meaning that the records are only matched if the value of the by variable appears in both data frame, right? So in most common terminology that is mostly used, this is called inner joint, right? This is called inner join, right? So I'm going to actually emphasize this by looking into our data set. Say for now, we were only going to keep um, a subset where in demo data, we're going to take subject 1 and subject 2, and then we go to PK data and we're going to take subject 2 and 3, right? And let us do that. So we're going to say in demo data, I just want to keep 1 and I'm going to keep 2, right? So I'm going to find this tiny subject, right, and say demo data, right? So I want to go to this column subject, and I'm going to use this pipe operator and say in 1 up to 2. So basically what is this doing is that it's going to this it's going to demo data, and it's going to this column subject, and I only want um this subject to fall in this sequence of numbers, which is 1 and 2. Okay, so that is exactly what I'm doing, and I'm only going to keep all the columns, right? So I'm just finding the subset when demo data subject in, which meaning only take that tiny subset when subject is 1 and 2, and keep all the columns, right? So for this other data, I'm gonna take when subject um, is value of 2 and 3, right? So I'm going to this data, and I'm also going to this data, and I want subject, okay, and I'm gonna say in, now I only want when subject is 2 and 3. Okay, so let me look into this, and I'm gonna say demo 1 and 2. Let me run this, and I'm gonna say pk 2 and 3. Okay, let's run this. So from these two data sets, we are observing that we have found only when subject is 1 and 2, and here for all those values when or all those observations when subject is 2 and 3. So what happens when we use the match function? So the default behavior of the match function is that match will only matches data for subject 2. Okay, so why is that the case? Because subject 2 is the only subject that appears in both data frames, right? So that's how matches works. It look at what appears in both data frames. Okay, let us look at this into action and say match, right? And I'm going to use this first one, say, and then I'm going to use the second one, say this is pk2 and 3. And let me try to run this. As you can see from the output, that this has only meshed when subject is 2. Okay, but if we specify additional arguments, okay, say for example we say all.x equals true, so that will mean retain all the records in the x state, right? And in this case the x data is demo 1 and 2. right? That will mean regardless of whether they appear in this second data frame. Okay, let's look at that example and say all dot x, and we set this to true. Okay, and we try to run this. You observe that it has picked this because it exists in this data frame. So pick everything that exists in the first data frame because that is how this happens. Okay, so this in most cases is called what? Left join, right? We can also specify true for all dot y, and this is what we call um, is what we call right join. And if you run this, you observe that it has kept all the other ones that exist on um, on the second data frame, which is what we specify here, specified true, and it has kept all the observations that exist in this second data frame if we specify all dot y equals to true. Okay, so now what's going to happen if we specify all equals to true, right? If we specify all equals to true, that is an example of an outer join where all records in each data frame, they are matched regardless of whether there is a matching value to match by in the other data frame, right? In that case, we will specify all equals here. We're going to say all and set all equals to true. So this is an example of an outer join, right? And if we try to run this, you observe that it has kept all the matching values in these two data frame, regardless of whether it is found on the other data frame. So it has kept everything because we specify all equals to true. So that is how you can make use of this other addition argument where this was an example of an outer join, and this was an example of the right join, and this was an example of the left join. Okay, so that is an example of how you can do merging using R. Okay,